I want to start with a little analogy that I think would perfectly illustrate the way I view Miku's character in relation to Fuutarou. So I'll take you guys on a quick adventure if you're willing to join me. Imagine Miku walking down a dim corridor. She's a stray, but she's trying to find a way out even though she struggles to even take a right step. There's a bit of light, but she can't barely even see her own feet. And so she's afraid, on the brink of giving up. In comes this guy, Fuutarou, who tells her that he knows the exit path and is willing to guide her towards it. And so she grabs his hand and he leads the way. After a long walk, they're finally standing before the exit, a rigid, imposing locked door which seems impossible to open. However, Fuutarou isn't concerned because he's got the key. He takes it out, hands it over to Miku, but at that moment, Miku learns that Fuutarou cannot go through that door. Only she can leave if she chooses to. And so she's presented with two choices. She can either stay there with Fuutarou in the dark, unable to fully grow, unable to ripen, or she can take the key, pass through the door and embrace herself, of course leaving Fuutarou behind. And the second choice was the one she picked indeed. This is the best I could come up with to show you my perspective on Miku's character in relation to Fuutarou. I see Fuutarou as both Miku's greatest support and her greatest impediment. While he was crucial for her development, he was also the ultimate obstacle, and that's why to me it feels very satisfying that Miku managed to leave him behind. But let's break this down a bit more. Out of all the queens, Miku had a clear endpoint. She needed to learn to love herself and do things for herself, not for somebody else, not for Fuutarou. She was getting groomed into becoming the perfect bride for Fuutarou, and she was doing everything in her powers to achieve that, but in the process she neglected herself, and she kept neglecting herself on and on and on. Her love became infatuation, then an obsession, and it was clear that she needed to let go. She couldn't grow, couldn't learn to believe in herself if she wouldn't let go of Fuutarou. When she did, her character arc reached its conclusion and is the only satisfying one in the entire story. That's what Miku has over her sisters, a complete and well-defined character arc. She started out with serious low self-esteem issues. She believed that anything she could do, her sisters could do better. And because her sisters were essentially the only people around her, it meant she couldn't do anything right, which fueled her self-doubt and she developed an inferiority complex. In her eyes, she was the inferior sister. If her sisters couldn't pass their exams, it meant she was utterly hopeless. That until Fuutarou came into her life and made her understand that because she's a quintuplet, she can't do anything her sisters can, lifting this inferiority pressure off of Miku's shoulders. From that moment, she started to see herself and her sisters as equals. This equality becomes fairness, and I'll dive into that in a bit, when she learns that she shouldn't hold back her progress just to stay on the same level as her sisters. It's alright to focus on herself and improve her strengths and weaknesses. She wouldn't intervene in her sister's path, but she wouldn't force herself to walk at the same pace as them. This fairness stood with her character for the rest of the story, to different extents. While she learns to loosen up a bit on the sturdiness of its meaning, not be that obsessed with everything being fair, she always stuck to herself and her improvement rather than bothering her sisters. Now about that improvement. Miku moves forward with baby steps, and every time she appears on the page, a baby step is in progress. Whether that step is successful or not, it entirely depends on herself. You see, Miku has a way of sabotaging her own progress by coming up with these self-imposed conditions, which turn out to be more devastating than they initially seemed. During the last exam arc, Miku comes up with this little condition that she would confess if she scores the highest. She believed that scoring the highest would make her grow in Fuutarou's eyes as the most hardworking sister, and it would give her the confidence necessary to speak her feelings. I'll explain more thoroughly in a minute why it matters to her so much, but she failed that condition, and that disappointment carried over to scrambled eggs. In fact, it's the catalyst the entire arc is based on. Also a peak for her character, because at the end she exposed her feelings and hugged Fuutarou, essentially understanding that any condition is unnecessary. Fuutarou will listen and respond. Whether they're student and teacher, it doesn't matter. That was a major development for her. All that was left was a confession. A date, as the one we got prior to the festival should have happened at this point, resulting in a confession. Instead, she conditions herself again by not confessing unless Fuutarou eats her bread. Why? She already overcame that stage, it just happened. Setting another useless condition undermines her growth from the previous arc. Don't get fooled by what Miku says here, that she just likes to make things, because it's still the same old condition. She worked hard to score the highest in order to confess, and now she works hard to make a delicious bread in order to confess. It's the same thing with a different coat of paint. Let me explain why the first condition was important to Miku and why the second shouldn't have happened. I'll take you guys back during the legend that binds, when Miku and Fuutarou were hiding in this igloo from Yotsuba. Miku babbles about equality and how they should handicap Yotsuba, but that's not important. What's important is what Fuutarou says after that. I don't want to deny Yotsuba's efforts. This not only sets Miku on a path striving for fairness among her sisters, but it's also the motivation behind her condition. Fuutarou recognized Yotsuba's efforts and validated them. She's a great athlete, she worked hard for that, and Fuutarou acknowledged it. And so, if he does the same for Miku, in the most pivotal moment, the last exams, their goal from the very beginning, he would give her the confidence to confess. Fuutarou would see that she worked really hard and scored the highest, therefore elevating herself in his eyes. Miku has a history of holding on to small things, Fuutarou said, and so scoring the highest would be a fair way of getting the spotlight for herself. In chapter 55, during the Valentine's Day, Miku got the highest score on the mock exams, which made Fuutarou happily congratulate her, further fueling Miku's resolve. Also, in chapter 58, when Fuutarou heard about Miku's actual score, he again congratulated her, even saying he knew she'd got the most potential. You can see that made her so happy she was about to confess right there. Of course, turns out Ichika scored the actual highest, and so Futarou's attention switched to her instead. Miku lost the spotlight. Now, I know, let's address the elephant in the room. You're probably wondering why I didn't say anything about that. Miku said that she wanted to score the highest in order to graduate from being Futarou's student, so she would be seen as a woman instead of just a student. You may be wondering why all this talk about fairness and spotlight when Miku already stated her reason behind her condition. And here's why. In chapter 67, Miku has a conversation with Itsuki in which she says that she would have been happy to be Futarou's best student. She would have been able to accept herself and therefore confess if she had succeeded. Everyone had the same chance, so it would have been fair. And like that, we came back to this fairness. Had Miku scored the highest, therefore becoming his best student, would have given her the spotlight to confess. But she failed, and because of that she acted the way she did in the scrambled eggs, until the end of chapter 67, when she finally understood that their teacher-student relationship doesn't need to change for her to confess to him, get closer to him, start a romantic relationship. So the actual objective behind her condition wasn't to break their student-teacher relationship, but for Fuutarou to acknowledge her hard work, to create an advantageous situation where Fuutarou would praise her efforts and she would gain the confidence to confess. At the end of chapter 67, she realized that her condition was meaningless because Fuutarou already noticed the little things, like the chocolate on Valentine's Day, and he doesn't give any of them special treatment for doing better than the others. If Itsuki scores higher on a mock exam today, Fuutarou will praise her while helping the rest improve their scores. If Miku does it the next day, the same thing happens. Fuutarou is happy as long as a pass is a pass. As he tells Miku in chapter 59, "You were a big help," he acknowledged her involvement and support even though she didn't score the highest. So, following the end of Scrambled Eggs, Miku understood that Fuutarou would listen no matter what, and she also gained a huge boost in confidence as in her eyes, Fuutarou recognized her under disguise. So what happens next? Well, forget about everything I just said because Negi decided that Miku would condition herself again with the exact same objective, basically the same condition with a different coat of paint for no fucking reason, rendering her entire development from the last exam to the end of Scrambled Eggs meaningless. How do you mess up this badly? Anyway, the Sisters War arc. Miku takes a few good steps backwards by conditioning her confession again and loses all the confidence she rightfully worked on building until that point for some unknown reason. She not only needed her sister's support to put her confession out there, which is a tough bonk on Miku's head, but they had to literally hold her hand and offer her confession to Fuutarou on a plate. that heavily deteriorates Miku's character. Sure, it's a nice way to show their family bond. Wait a second. It's pointless to show a bond that we already saw how strong and tight it is throughout the course of the manga. They went at each other's throats after Yotsuba got chosen anyway, so what did the sisters' war strengthen? Wasn't one of its main points that the queens can put their sisterly bond over outside love? Didn't Nino say she would congratulate any of them if they get chosen? Was she not including Yotsuba then? A fake conflict with a fake solution, but let's move past it. The reality is that there was no reason why Miku couldn't just confess herself after the scrambled eggs, other than to keep the story going for longer. The sisters' war arc is just an unnecessary mess. So let's move on to something more interesting and look at the one single wrong turn Miku took, which doomed her chances with Fuutarou. Miku's fall began when she declared that the path to Futarou's heart was through a race against her sisters. That's when Fuutarou became a trophy. That's when he turned into an obstacle from a supporting position. It no longer was she wants Fuutarou to love her, but she must win the race, win him first. And that's when every single possibility of her being the bride vanished. You see, while the prize is important, in a competition the focus switches almost entirely on how to win. And when the prize is a human being, it won't wait for the competition to be over when he's not even interested in being the prize. And so while we, the audience, are witnessing a fierce and engaging competition, the prize has already left to play on swings with his dummy ribbon head and his fat friend. If we were to compare Miku's actions from before she said that line and from after, which I'm going to do in just a second, we can slowly see how she wasn't as interested into showing Fuutarou her love as she was competing to win before her sisters. She competes for the spot as Futarou's working colleague, competes for a spot in Futarou's group during Kyoto, competes for his attention during their study sessions, like how she immediately got in between when Nino asked Fuutarou to check her answers. She was going to give Fuutarou a gym membership for his birthday even though she and her sisters agreed not to give him anything. Competes for his attention during the pool chapter, and it becomes an obsession. Look how she intervened between Nino and Fuutarou, saying she was going with them to whatever they're talking about, even though it literally had nothing to do with her. Before, you could see how much she wanted her feelings reciprocated, and it's really endearing. Her innocent love is a joy to watch. The difference between, say, chapter 31 Miku, when she said to Ichika that she wouldn't lose to them, which is also when she officially admitted her love for Fuutarou, and chapter 58 Miku, when she said it's first come first served, if you want a direct comparison between similar phrases, is that before, Fuutarou was Miku's primary focus, not competing. She used to hang around Fuutarou without dying of embarrassment because she wasn't self-pressured into moving ahead of the others. Even though at the end of Scrambled Eggs, in her eyes Fuutarou recognized her, and she was at the top of the world, closer than ever to him, she still conditions herself. And what's even worse is that for some unknown reason, she is unable to even ask Fuutarou for a couple of minutes together during Kyoto to give him that bread and speak her mind. Miku, sweetie, you just jump hugged this guy not long ago, and now you can't even talk to him? Okay, I promise I won't mention the sisters' war again. Now back to Miku's actions before the race. In chapter 33, when Fuutarou is in hospital, she's willing to visit him anytime he feels lonely, willing to cook for him, although that might not be a good idea, feeds him bread, wishes him good health. Chapter 35, she's willing to get naked for him. Chapter 36, she actually asks him on a date. Chapter 38, well, she goes all out. Chapter 39, she stands up for Fuutarou, and so on and so forth. Every time she interacts with Fuutarou, she does something to make him love her, to showcase her feelings. That until she declares the race. After she does it, good luck finding an interaction between her and Fuutarou that doesn't involve competing. Well, until chapter 98. From that point onwards, Miku gets back on track and receives the development she needs. Her festival side chapters are flawless. It's just solid growth. Her level of confidence bursts through her abnormally small body. Dude, what the fuck? She succeeds. Again and again and again. She becomes a dependable person, capable of overcoming anything. She speaks her mind freely. She loves Fuutarou and can't wait to share her happiness with him. I have to give Negi credit here. These two chapters are unbelievably good. Unfortunately, it's a bit too late for Miku, her chances vanished as soon as she declared the race. While I do dislike the chapters after Fuutarou's decision, 116 when Yotsuba and Miku go karaoke is an exception. It's when Miku actually understood that, first and foremost, she needs to love herself, and that's the cherry on the cake for her development, if we were to skip over the Sisters War arc, of course. And so Miku's conclusion is the most satisfying out of all the queens. It's really bittersweet, and I love bittersweet. Bitter because she worked really hard, she overcame her limits, fought with all her might, but that was still not enough. And sweet because her efforts were not in vain, she was the receiver of the payoff, not Fuutarou. She's grown tremendously and became a confident person. Her efforts were not wasted, unlike some of her sisters. If she ended up being the bride, it wouldn't have really changed anything. It would be a nice wrap-up for her character as a whole, like a bonus, but not necessary for her character to be complete. At least that's how I feel. I would even go as far as to say that it was better that she wasn't chosen, as she managed to accept and love herself for who she is instead of directing that to Fuutarou. I'm not saying that this wouldn't have happened if she was the bride, most likely it would have, but it did regardless, so it's alright. So a bit of input from the future. I kind of messed up the recording of this part, so I had to do it again, but in the meantime I also got the flu, which to be honest kind of messed up everything. I'm still recovering from that and my breathing doesn't exactly feel right. If I speak for more than 1 minute, it feels like I've ran a marathon. It sucks, honestly. But let me say that for someone who was not going to be the bride, Miku got way too much focus. She was in the center of too many arcs. If we have a quick look, there are roughly 17 arcs throughout the manga, which I'm going to list here on the screen for you. Out of these, only 8 are major. The rest are sprinkled between these major arcs to fill in the gaps. While the first arc focused a little bit on everyone, it quickly prioritized Miku after the introductions were delivered to the audience. Then in the firework festival, she wasn't the main concern, but she was trying to figure out her relationship with Fuutarou and had a few good moments where she took the spotlight. The legend that binds, again, focused on everyone but Yotsuba, because she got her own little corner in the Labor Thanksgiving. In the 7 Goodbyes, she takes a backseat role and only acts as a support for both Miku and Fuutarou. The last exam where everyone gets the spotlight, and from here on Miku takes over. She is the catalyst for the scrambled eggs from 3 different angles. First, she wanted to dismiss her student-teacher relationship with Fuutarou, thus making him worry about his current position in their lives. Second, she pushed Fuutarou into trying to tell the queens apart, her especially. And third, she strengthened Futarou's view on love when she hugged him at the end of the arc. Then comes the Sisters War arc where, yes my friends, Miku is still the major focus. The festival is where everyone gets their own little segment again. So Miku is kind of everywhere. 7 Goodbyes is the only part of the manga where she doesn't take over, but put that aside, and there she is. The reason for her overwhelming screen time is a lack of character control on Negi's part, something he admits in his interview from Miku's character book. I'll have a link in the description for that. There's not much to say here other than the obvious, which isn't a very positive view. Negi failed to manage his characters. It is what it is. Anyhow, these are my thoughts on Miku's character and why I'm actually really satisfied with her progression throughout the story. She had some high ups and really low downs, but overall a solid growth. She definitely got the best treatment in the story. Can't say the same thing for Ichika, who should be the protagonist of my next video on the queens, which won't come out too soon because right now I'm really feeling a quintuplet burnout. I started to feel it while writing this video, which is one of the reasons it got delayed so much. It may not seem like it since I don't post too often, but most of my free time was spent on writing and editing these videos. Too much queens, I suppose. So I'm going to take a bit of a break from the queens and finish the rest of the videos after that. That being said, thank you for watching and till next time.